Morning. Welcome to Board of Supervisors, and outside of the courts, this is the biggest traffic jam we have, which is, it had to do, never mind. Thank you. Please stand. I'm still going over options. Please join us for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You caught on, supervisor.
Yeah, I caught that.
You caught that. Carol, there were no... Oh, yes, there were. Thank you. Sorry about that. There was a closed session held last week, 4956.9, a conference with labor negotiators. The item was continued for 1 week. A closed session, again, under 54956.9, a conference with legal counsel, existing litigations, 3 cases, Michael Nemi, Michelle Nemi versus County of Calaveras, Superior Court Case CV 35775, Michael Nemi, Michelle Nemi versus the County of Calaveras, Court Case CV 35721, Michael Nemi, Michelle Nemi versus the County of Calaveras, Superior Court Case CV 36297, resulting in no action taken. There was also a closed session, 54956.9B1, a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure, 1 case. It was continued for 1 week. Also, item 20 on the agenda, closed session, has been pulled. I'd like to move to the consent agenda. If any member of the board, staff, or public would like to pull a consent agenda item, please let me know. May I have a motion? Number 4. Thank you. Any others? May I have a motion, please?
Yes, so moved. Balance, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. Bonnie, could you please come up? Introduce yourself. Thank you.
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I just have a question about the Presley funds. Is that marriage license fees?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion on item 4?
So moved.
Second.
The married men on this board, all of you are.
One more day.
May I have a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. We will take a recess for 2 minutes.
And they base it on something.
When Jeannie Middleton says we can go, we're going.
I guess that's a yes.
That's a yes.
I'd like to move to public comments. If there's anything anyone would like to address on the board that is not on the agenda and under the jurisdiction of the board, please come forward and just identify yourself and go ahead. If you have something to pass out, you can give to the clerk. Thank you.
Good morning. This is my first appearance in this kind of situation.
Just identify yourself.
My name is Alan Fowler. I live on Swiss Ranch Road in Mountain Ranch.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Jerry Yates, who was murdered by the pit bulls, was a very good friend of mine. He was a community supporter. Thanksgiving time, he would give out turkeys to people. He was very generous. He ran the gas station. If people didn't have gas to get to work, he helped them out. Since the killing of Jerry Yates in Mountain Ranch on August 22nd, there's been a massive public outcry against vicious dogs. A recent 3-day petition signing event in Mountain Ranch collected over 530 signatures from residents who are horrified by Jerry's death. Most initially felt sympathy for Cheryl Sellers, who owned those pit bulls, but when the 5-year history of violations and fines were made public knowledge, the sympathy turned to outrage. During the 3-day petition signing, we heard from dozens of residents who do not feel safe on their own property due to roving dogs. Dozens of pit bull owners initially did not want to sign the petition, but when we explained to them that we're not after any certain breed or anything, just the fact that vicious dogs need to be contained, they need to contain them on their own property, not to be able to get off and hurt people on other properties, they signed the petitions as well. A group of us got together after the signing of the petition to initiate an action plan, and we came up with the following. A letter from the county to all county residents informing them of the critical points of the animal control laws, the owner's responsibilities, the penalties for those violations, and recommendations for safe containment using perimeter collars, proper kennels, etc., and also contact phone numbers for help when they're having a problem with dogs. We feel it is necessary to institute a policy for follow-up on vicious dog violations and verify that those owners are complying with those laws. Had that been done in the case of Cheryl Sellers, Jerry Yates would be alive today. And we have the following questions and concerns for our Board of Supervisors. Have the records regarding Sellers been located yet? And according to some newspaper articles, Cheryl Sellers and Michael Richard were fined $1,000. Were those fines ever paid? Was there any enforcement there? Can the municipal code be amended to require the veterinarians to report suspicious animals? Can you increase the fines for violations, which would also add money for animal control? The fines right now, a $100 fine for a dog that gets off the property and kills a neighbor's animals or threatens or attacks people, is not sufficient. Can we request that you establish an advisory committee, as is in the municipal code, section 6.04060, a group of people to try to see that this can be accomplished in the future and people will be safer? I don't know if any of you folks have looked online to see the number of vicious attacks by dogs in the state of California, but it's overwhelming. It's ongoing, constant. And can you find the funding to strengthen and enforce the municipal animal control ordinances? Can the volunteer sheriff's staff be increased to free up the deputies for more critical agendas? And we realize the huge geographical area of this county and the current funding limits involved, but we don't want to see any more of our friends and neighbors killed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Go ahead.
Well, I would have waited, but after what I heard from this gentleman, I want you to listen to this. This is...
Hello, I'm going to talk to another one of Susie's neighbors.
Susie Crow's neighbor.
Susie Crow's dog bit this lady, and her dogs are running wild.
Her dogs are attacking people. We have complained about her ag dispute. This woman sticks her dogs from the
Debbie, I'm Terry Baker.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Debbie who?
Beaufort.
I have questions about what's happening over here next door.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any problems or anything with what's going on over here? Because I'm here.
We have turned her in because her dogs have been loose and attacked us.
Susie
Nothing
Crow's
has been
dogs.
done. They turned her in and turned her in.
She doesn't do anything about
Not only about her dogs, but
We had a
about
court
her
case
illegal
pending and
conduct.
they threw it out because we didn't, the Human Animal Services delayed it, and they said the judge threw it out because,
It took too long?
yeah.
They threw it out of court. I'm not going to waste any more of my time with this, but I got hours of this with their neighbors, and I'm going to show you what's going on over there. And what happened to Jerry Yates is going to happen again and again and again. It's going to happen because of Susie Coe, and you should talk to her neighbors. Damn it. Yes, cool.
Could you please come up? You're on record, Mr. Fowler.
When we talked, we got over 530 signatures of residents, right? These people, a lot of people, there had to be at least 36 people that complained about dogs hurting their children, hurting their animals. I wished I had thought to have a recorder so that I could have
I got videos, I got recorded.
Thank you.
people's comments. Unfortunately, I didn't.
Thank you, Mr.
We'll all take care of that.
Mr. Baker, did you
Yes,
want
I
to
hope you
proceed?
don't take my time up with that.
I am taking your time. You are on the
Okay,
clock.
Here's a map of Susie Coe's property, okay? And she is located right dead center in a residential subdivision. She is not zoned for agriculture at all. And her neighbors are telling me that they contacted Steve Walensky, and he told them that Susie Coe can do anything she wants on her 5 acres. And these neighbors are afraid to even make another complaint, because when they do, the same thing happens to them as what's been happening to us. She's got 6 neighbors directly around her home that have been complaining, took her to court, turned her in over and over and over again, and they're done. They said, well, why should we do it? All she does is gets away with everything. Now, she's making complaints she's being our representative against the Redmonds, and she's telling us what's legal and what's not. This is what she builds on her property. It's about a 30 by 50 foot illegal agricultural accessory structure, no permit, nothing, because she's agriculture too. You guys are going to do anything you want when it comes to agriculture. She's on 5 acres. You can't do this in the middle of a subdivision and tell everyone else just to go to hell. That's what you're doing, man, and it's sick. You know how many people, Steve, that are over here that say you told them that since she was rezoned RR, she can do anything they want. And I got it on video. Don't talk to me. You put that video screen down, I'll bring the video in, I'll let them show you. You got to stop lying to people. Just because you own 5 acres doesn't make you God and be able to harass anybody that touches your property. This lady up the road that doesn't even touch her property, she's afraid to walk her dogs down the street, and she works for the Humane Society. She fosters dogs. She won't walk them near Susie Coe's property because she's on the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee. Why doesn't she fix her own disputes?
Your comments were noted, Mr. Baker.
Thanks, Walensky. Her dog did it.
Mr. Baker, you're no longer at the podium,
I know,
please.
I'm out of control, aren't I? I'm the one who's out of control. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Frigero. I am the interim executive director for the Resource Connection and the permanent program director for the Calaveras Crisis Center. So I just wanted to take a few minutes today and give you all an update about what the Resource Connection has been up to. As you all know, the state budget has yet to be signed. So the board has made a decision to hold off on recruiting for a new ED until that is signed. We've got about $3 million of our funding that's wrapped up in that state budget. So we're going to hold off on that process until we have a budget signed. We know what's going to happen with our contracts a little bit. Some really exciting things have been happening at the Resource Connection. Head Start just completed its annual report, which I'm going to be sending a copy to each of you so that you can have a look at that and see what that looks like. Santa's Express will be in full swing next month. I know you're all familiar with our food bank, doing a wonderful job out there. Over 100 red boxes will be out in the community. We'd like to encourage the community to give and to donate and make this a red letter year for us. Last Saturday was the groundbreaking of the new community garden for the food bank, so watch for that. That's a partnership between the Resource Connection and the Rotaries of Calaveras County, so it should be a really interesting project that we're going to use for education and outreach, and also bring more fresh fruits and vegetables into the food bank. The Court Self-Help Legal Center has seen a marked increase in the number of individuals that have been utilizing our services. We're seeing about 40 calls a day for assistance in situations regarding civil matters and family law issues. And we've seen a lot of people coming in with bankruptcy and foreclosure issues, so we've added a bankruptcy clinic 2 Fridays a month in both Calaveras and Amador counties. Beyond that, next meeting, you will see me again because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I'll be talking to you about that. And that's all I have. Just wanted to give you an update.
Thank you. You're doing both jobs, I gather.
Yeah.
Thank you. We do thank you. Does anyone else have an item?
Madam Chairman, Honorable Supervisors, my name is Al Segala with the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and I think the county and the taxpayers are together and have the same interests in encouraging the state to act in a responsible manner. One of the problems the state has is its ability to handle money. It doesn't seem to have the ability to handle money in a responsible way. And the Taxpayer Association put together a fiscal responsibility amendment that we're sending to the governor. We did this a year ago, and it sort of fizzled out at that time, but the problem has continued. And I think if local governments could also consider endorsing this or something similar, perhaps we could start to turn this around. There is a Proposition 25, which is called the majority vote for the legislature to pass the Budget Act, and sometimes it's called a on-time Budget Act. This is not a responsible approach because it removes the constitutional protections of the taxpayer and allows budgets to pass that would increase taxes. And also it's written in such a manner that it's deceptive. And we shouldn't be seeing those kind of things on the ballot. It should be clear as to what the meaning and purpose of it is. The proponents of Prop 25 are the same people that want to increase the state taxes now. And well, anyway, so I'm going to I'll provide you with a copy of our letter, and perhaps you would consider joining the Taxpayer Association and perhaps other communities that would go for a responsible amendment to solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segala. Are there any other comments?
Good morning. Marty Crane, Valley Springs, Rancho Calaveras. Before I share this morning, I'd just like to say that we keep hearing from a member of the public alluding that Tim McSorley, director of the CCOG, has for some unknown but obviously questionable reason failed to provide an accounting of the infamous $255,000 Caltrans grant. All I had to do was stop in and ask, here it is. You could have it in 5 minutes. Each page is supported by all the appropriate receipts, creating a stack about 2 to 3 inches thick, which I'm told has already been provided to Supervisor Tofinelli because he asked. Enough said. I think we should move on. Our county government is a business, and the taxpayer pays all the salaries. We fix it, or we continue to live with its dysfunction. We expect and demand that our staff and elected officials work within this very board to protect the county first and foremost, regardless of their personal wants and desires. It takes all 5, not just 2 or 3, to work effectively and efficiently to accomplish the work of the people. The people, that's all of us. Of course, there will be differences of opinion, and that's good. That's when the discussion should begin and the best ideas and information fettered out. That missing, the quality of the end product is most certainly diminished. We also know that all 5 supervisors vote on all the issues, which impacts all 5 of the districts. Therefore, every one of us has a vested interest in seeing to it that all 5 of our supervisors work professionally and respectfully within the board. That means giving your fellow board members the courtesy of letting them know when an issue or a meeting arises that would affect their district or the county at large. That also means that when a supervisor becomes aware of a potential cause for board concern, he or she is or should be required to come to the board and ask the board's pleasure before making those decisions on his or her own. The board meets, discusses, and makes decisions. Each supervisor and department head is required to adhere to the decisions of the board. In the shadow of the recent Tofanelli closed meeting seemingly unchecked efforts, apparently several Rancho Calaveras property owners got together and updated the Rancho Special Plan, also with no community input or participation. This was the very special plan they fought so hard to protect and were so afraid someone would make changes to. Where is the product of this process? When will it be made available for the people to have some quality and quantity time to evaluate the product and comment on what most certainly affects their property? Both of these processes involve well-meaning citizens stepping up to make a difference in their community. How wonderful to have citizens that care enough to get involved. The issue is obviously not the citizens stepping up. It is these non-public, precedent-setting activities that go unchecked, that discourage and ultimately eliminate the voice and participation of the public at large. We end up being governed by the few. Again, a slippery slope, and everyone loses. Now, in the wake of all of this, we have Supervisor Tryon dismissing the board's authority to provide direction, and fellow Supervisor Callaway in particular. He took it upon himself to make decisions for the board without authorization and to represent the entire board at a city council meeting that impacted a county-wide issue. His views and his voice was the only input on behalf of the board and the county. While the board anticipated a collective product, it was determined in last week's supervisor meeting that contrary to board direction, they did not collaborate with the CCOG to develop the separate working documents brought forward, and that the only direction given to the planning department for formulating the JPA seemed to be from Supervisor Tryon. So a while back, I believe I heard Supervisor Walensky challenge or charge the planning department and the CCOG to collaborate and come back with a mutually agreeable document or words to that effect. Apparently that doesn't count. It appears that our competent planning department head is taking direction solely from Supervisor Tryon. Again, only one voice, inappropriate, and yet again a slippery slope. The discovery at the last supervisor meeting of just what has and has not transpired between the CCOG and the planning department head was blatantly insulting. What is this? What the public doesn't know won't hurt them? I don't know. What happened to the board discussion and decision to channel all the board inquiries related to staff requests through the CAO? If there are personnel issues, it is imperative that these issues be addressed head-on and dealt with so we can move forward honestly and professionally. If not addressed, the foundation we build on will be subject to crumble. We will never be able to keep qualified personnel if they are forced to work under questionable circumstances.
Marty, you have 30 seconds.
I'm dead. We cannot afford to be less than effective and at the very least functional and professional. Supervisor Walensky helped us define sometimes confusing and overlapping issues and move forward to the beginnings of a consensus by polling the board on these issues. And he acknowledged, as did several members of the public, the need to address the editing results as presented by Supervisor Callaway. Supervisor Thomas brought to light some serious working relationship flaws that ultimately seriously diminished the final document product. And he as well expressed a need to address the many Callaway edits, some of which represented basic housekeeping. Some were easy fixes and yet still failed to find their way into the final document or as an attachment to the City Council for the City Council to review. I'm almost done. While watching the public screening on PATV, since I had to leave early last week, I witnessed the constant interruptions, insulting disregard for the labor and prepared document edits brought forward by fellow Supervisor Callaway, and the complete dismissal by Supervisor Tryon of the public's comments, including many professionals giving of their time and expertise on the related task at hand.
Marty?
Okay. I want everybody to go to a couple of meetings, and I don't know how to get the word out on that, so perhaps somebody can announce that for me.
Thank you. Does anyone else have an item they'd like to address?
My name's Bonnie. I'm from Double Springs. I have 3 topics I'd like to try and get through in 5 minutes, so bear with me. Newspaper articles last week. Sacramento Bee, Wednesday. County Fraud Task Force flags 60 home care cases. The county felt that fraud was so prevalent in Sacramento, they appointed their own county task force and have already uncovered 60 fraud cases, which doesn't account for a whole lot when you think they probably have 6,000 or more clients. But the next day, Stockton Record, many felons work as state caregivers. Apparently, in spite of the fact that we're all required to be fingerprinted and background checked, they're making claims that there are people who don't have to go through that process who are being care providers. And then finally, on Saturday, it was governor is implementing additional restrictions for home care providers to be disqualified. Nothing objectionable. They don't want to have any rapists or aggravated assault, but they're not taking into account that there are actual family members who prefer their own family members to take care of them in spite of perhaps a felonious background. So anyway, the fight continues. The calendars that I've handed out, this is the result of 4 months of work. The calendars are pretty important for home care providers and recipients, but what's more important is the resource list that we've been able to put together. If you notice, on one side of the resource list is all the resources in the community that providers and recipients can avail themselves. Support groups, one column, community services, and 800 numbers in the center column, and finally on the left, mostly county agencies. Then if you want to turn it over on the back, we also have the welfare department people that are involved in our program, the advisory board members who are responsible for directing the program, the contract negotiating team who is all available to field any questions that anybody has. We're not anonymous. We don't mind having our phone numbers listed. We will take the responsibility of filling out anything that we did. And finally, your folks on the end. For anybody that feels they need to pursue a question from the top to the bottom. And lastly, I presented this to the IHSS Advisory Board meeting yesterday. They had the committee. They're not a board, they're a committee. To see if they were interested in helping us disseminate it, to get it mailed out, and they're not. So, I'm still collecting funds. Right now, my $50 donation mailed out 108 calendars to the Valley Springs area. You folks in other areas, your clients and recipients aren't receiving this information because the old kitty just didn't go that far. We were only able to collect about $100 last month. So we bought a printing cartridge to make the calendars and the stamps. So if you feel inclined to, in your contingency fund, to help us out at all, or if you feel it might be worthwhile to pass around the can, I'd be more than happy to at any time. This list is not computer generated. I mean, it was this is what the list actually looks like. Little pieces of paper put together and put in an order that kind of makes sense. And I understand that the welfare department is really doing a networking thing, and that's in the future, but this is today, and it's available. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bonnie, do you have a pen?
Yes?
There's an error on my telephone number.
There is?
Yes.
Lucky you.
It's not 728, it's 785.
And that's why I haven't been able to get a hold of you.
Yes. Thank Thank you. And any corrections or additions, we will improve it as the time goes on.
Thank you, Bonnie. And just as a point of interest, Bonnie, the Board of Supervisors no longer has discretionary funds. That's gone.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on an item not on the agenda?
So what you're saying, the
Could you
discretionary...
introduce yourself,
My name's
please?
Clyde. How you guys doing? So you don't have the discretionary fund, so now it has come out of your personal pocket, the right pocket, not the left? Is that what you're telling us?
Well, there was...
No, it's out of your pocket.
Oh, it's always out of my pocket, though.
Thank you. Does anyone else have an item not on the agenda under the jurisdiction of the board?
Good morning. Colleen Tracy, Health Services Agency Director, and with me is Larry Cornish from Mark Twain St. Joseph Hospital. This year, the Public Health Department, the hospital, and Supervisor Callaway are collaborating on bringing to the board a resolution to proclaim October as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Calaveras County. You're probably aware that breast cancer is the most common cancer among women in the United States, other than skin cancer. It is the second leading cause of cancer death in women after lung cancer. Breast cancer death rates have actually been improving in the United States since about 1991, and that is attributed to two things. One is improved treatment, but also earlier detection. And a focal message every year of Breast Cancer Awareness Month from the county is encouraging women to get a screening mammogram every year if they are age 40 or older. What I'd like to do is read the resolution, give Larry an opportunity to share some of the awareness events that the hospital is sponsoring this year, and then Supervisor Callaway, I believe, has some comments also. This is a resolution proclaiming October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Calaveras County, whereas breast cancer is an uncontrolled growth of abnormal cells in the breast, found mostly in women, but also occurs in men. And whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer in women other than skin cancer, with an estimated 207,100 new cases of invasive breast cancer expected to be diagnosed in U.S. women in 2010. And whereas in 2010, an estimated 39,840 women will die from breast cancer in the United States, including 4,000 women in California and approximately 7 women who are residents of Calaveras County. And whereas mammograms are the best way to help detect breast cancer early when the cancer is easier to treat and the chance of survival is improved. And whereas the American Cancer Society recommends that all women 40 years and older should have a mammogram once a year. And whereas the Mark Twain St. Joseph's Hospital has digital mammography available for improved detection of breast cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors proclaims October as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month and encourages women over the age of 40 to get mammography screening and clinical breast exams. And be it further resolved that the Board supports National Breast Cancer Awareness Month and urges the public to remind the women in their lives to schedule their mammogram or checkup. Larry.
Good morning. Thank you for your support of October's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I wanted to give you a couple updates on some of the things that were going on. Colleen already mentioned about digital mammography and its proven value for diagnosis of or early detection of breast cancer. Our digital mammography unit has been operational since May now, and about 2,000 women have taken advantage of that examination. That new examination tool that we have at the hospital. So that's very good for this community that is now available. I did want to talk to you a little bit about Pink in the Night. Pink in the Night is our celebration that we've been doing in the communities of Murphy's, Copperopolis, and Angels Camp for a couple of years now. That's where we encourage business owners to hang pink lights in their community, and then they're all turned on at the same time for the entire month of October. And this particular campaign is funded totally by the Mark Twain Healthcare District, and the Hospital Foundation actually is a partner in it as well to make sure that the lights are available to the community so that they don't have to incur any cost to promote early detection of breast cancer. This year we're expanding it to Arnold and Valley Springs, and on the 30th of this month we're going to be turning the lights on in Arnold at 6 o'clock with a celebration at Meadowmont Shopping Center, and in Valley Springs at 7 o'clock down at, I believe it's called the Courtyard Fusion Grill area in Valley Springs. And so we'll have 5 communities in Calaveras County that are all taking part in the Pink in the Night celebration. Yes?
I believe it's the Terrace Shopping Center.
Thank you. That sounds even better.
Okay.
Thank you. October 2nd, we actually have a couple of our football teams, the Junior Redskins, Calaveras Junior Redskins, and one other one. Forgive me, I don't know the name of the other team. But their mothers are all going to be presented by the football players with breast cancer awareness pins at the games. And all the football players will have breast cancer ribbon decals on their helmets for the games as well. So it's spreading out not to just the communities but the youngsters as well, and that's really what's most important to us. I do have some breast cancer wristbands that will match Marita's attire, and also some breast cancer pins for you to take for yourselves or pass them out to your friends. And that's all I had. Thank you, Colleen.
Larry, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a specific phone number that you can call if you want to schedule an appointment?
Well, actually, if you have to be referred by your physician.
Okay.
But they can call the hospital at 754-3521 and ask for the radiology scheduler, and they'll get you scheduled. But you do have to have a referral from your physician.
Thank you.
You bet.
Since I've been on the Board of Supervisors, every year I've recognized Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I really appreciate the help of Mark Twain and Colleen Tracy to bring it forward this year. I also want to thank the Women of Government Center, who have also been supporters of Breast Cancer Awareness Month and wear their pink ribbons during October. I also, as in the past, always ask the men in the audience and on this board to make sure that the women in their lives get their mammograms, and of course self-examination. We've all known women who've died of breast cancer, and we all know women who are survivors, and it's to them that I honor this. And men also do get breast cancer. Please encourage the women in your life to do this. It's good for them. It's good for. May I have a motion on this resolution, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll kill you if you do. This motion passes. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Larry. I'd like to move to item 12 now, a public hearing for soliciting citizens' views on the Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Account and moving of the funds. Ms. Sawicki.
Good morning. Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Works and Human Services. We're here to request the board to consider having a public hearing today to hear citizens' views regarding the transfer of funds in the Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Account to our rental security deposit program in the amount of $24,000. This is a new requirement by the Community Services Department in the federal government. This particular fund enables people who are low income, who are in need of some deposits in order to have appropriate housing, to have access to those funds. It is a loan account, and people do indeed pay these funds back.
Are there any questions, Ms. Wilkie, at this moment? Steve?
It's not a question, but a comment. This is a program that has made the difference between people winding up homeless and actually being able to get into a rental property. Often it's the security deposit plus the first and last month's rent that becomes the barrier to actually moving out of your car or your tent or your neighbor's or your relative's place and actually getting a place of your own. This was an innovation that occurred, I believe, maybe 4 years ago in this county, and it has made a difference in countless lives. I wish we had a full, unfortunately, because of privacy issues, you can't really talk about all the details of this, but it has made a huge difference in my district, and I'm sure others as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? I'll open the public hearing.
Yes, I had one question. So this means it'll always be $24,000 because it'll be paid back, and this is like a perpetual.
It's not perpetual if we don't have enough funds. But what we're suggesting is moving fund from the program income side over to the revolving loan rental assistance side. It's roughly in the past been about $25,000. This year we're recommending $24,000.
Okay. That was Bonnie. Do you want to just identify yourself for the
Yes,
record?
Bonnie Newman, Double Springs.
Thank you.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. The question is, what has been the history in the past of this money being paid back?
Okay. Two people, same question, Ms. Lewicki.
Okay. Let me grab out. If you have a copy of the board agenda item, since July 1, we've made this year $6,495 in rental security deposit loans. In the last fiscal year, we had $33,400 in rental security deposit loans to individual families, and we received repayments of $18,936.43 back.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item?
Marty Crane, it occurs to me that since this is a security deposit loan, that another recourse in case someone isn't able to repay it would be when they move out, they get the security deposit back, and it comes back there, I would think.
We do receive those funds back.
Yep. Yeah, in the end.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? This is a public hearing on this item. Close the public comment and bring it back to the board for action. Or questions or comments from the board on this? And may I have some action on the resolution, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. I will move the resolution.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 13, a resolution authorizing a boundary line adjustment for the Fisher Family Trust.
Good morning, Mary Mutz, Agricultural Commissioner. Yes, the issue before you does have to do with the boundary line adjustment for the Fisher family. The Fishers have over 340 acres that's restricted by a Williamson Act contract, and so therefore the board must make 7 findings because it's restricted by a contract. But the Fishers have 2 parcels involved in this boundary line adjustment. One parcel is very small, 1.95 acres. The other parcel is large, 339 acres. The unfortunate situation here is the Paloma Road separates these 2 parcels. So this little 1.95 acre piece is on the east side of the road, and all the remainder of the land is on the west side of the road. And it's quite clear that a 1.5 acre piece is not very able to sustain any agriculture. So what the the Fishers are planning to do with this boundary line adjustment is swing the line that creates that 1.95 acre piece over to the other side of Paloma Road. This will provide them with one big, continuous 341 acre parcel. And the second part of this boundary line adjustment is for some estate planning, and there's yet another legal parcel line or patent line in that big northern parcel. It runs north-south. They're going to swing it east-west. And if you look at the maps at the end of the packet where you are shown the current configuration and the future proposed configuration, you will see how the land will be divided, or not divided, that's the incorrect term, will be reconfigured. So at least with the aspects of the boundary line adjustment, are there any questions with what they plan to do? And the family members are here if you have any questions for them.
Looks fairly straightforward to me.
Okay, the Ag Advisory Committee met on February 16th and recommends that the board do adopt the findings that are contained within this packet, but state law requires that we discuss the findings. So very quickly, finding number one, when the new maps are recorded and all the titles are exchanged, the Fishers will execute 2 new contracts, and these contracts will be for 10 years. Finding number 2, there will be no net decrease in the amount of acreage restricted. Finding number 3, yes, at least 90% of the land, the original land does remain in the new contract. Actually, 99% of the original land will remain in contract. Finding number 4, the new parcels will certainly meet the state requirement for sustaining ag use. The state requires 40-acre minimum parcel sizes. As you can see, their parcels will be over 166 and over 175 acres. Finding number 5, this lot line adjustment will not have any effect on lands that are currently subject to a contract in the vicinity. Finding 6, the lot line adjustment will not result in the removal of any agricultural land. And finding number 7, the boundary line adjustment will not create more developable parcels. Is there any further discussion on the findings?
Steve, this is...
Yes, this is in my district, and I've met with the family, reviewed the situation. It is as described in this. The findings are accurate, and as a result, I'd like to make a motion. Excuse me. I'm not sure whether there's public comment or not. Before I make a motion, we should certainly do that.
Is there any public comment on this boundary line adjustment and contract adjustment?
Okay, with that, I would move that we approve a resolution authorizing boundary line adjustment 0930 for the Dewey Fisher Family Trust, and with it, approve the findings as outlined in the document before us.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I'd like to move to item 14.
Good morning. I'm Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health Services in Calaveras County. I just wanted to bring attention to this contract because it's a rather large contract for a service for a very few numbers of children and youth. It's called Therapeutic Behavioral Services. We are required, related to a case that started in 1998 called Emily Q, which requested that this service, a one-on-one service to children to help teach them appropriate behaviors to reduce their symptoms of mental illnesses. Anyway, it was requested that this service be provided through Medi-Cal, and by 2001 it was wending its way through the courts and in fact is now a Medi-Cal reimbursed service. And we are still under a court order. The case has not quite been finished here in 2010 regarding this. We are required to have 2 meetings annually, one for decision makers, which would be judges, department heads, probation, CalWorks, school districts to inform them about the services, and a public stakeholders meeting to also inform the public about the services. The decision makers meeting, and this is the legal terms, will be this Thursday at 1 o'clock. And we have a very small number of decision makers in the county that fit this criteria, so if other people are interested, they could attend the meeting at 1 o'clock this Thursday at the Mental Health Clinic building on campus. It's a large amount of money. We only serve maybe 4 children a year. That is our requirement or recommendation from the state. The services can be from 4 hours to 8 hours to 23 hours a day if the family needs that much work with the child or youth. And it's relatively expensive service for children who meet these class, which is to be full scope Medi-Cal and also at risk of psychiatric hospitalization or placement in a group home level placement. So I just thought maybe people would have some questions about this.
Who set the 100,000 limit? Is that because...
We expect that with the more publicity and more people know about this, that we will be getting more requests for services. So that's just in case. Actually, 2 years ago, we spent about $46,000 on this contract. Last year, it was only $25,000 because we are doing a number of other services that also help to lower the risk for that population. So it will probably not be $100,000, but we want to make sure we're covered just in case.
I thought it interesting about $2 per minute.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm. Our services are all calculated per minute.
Per minute? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any questions from the board on this? Are there any questions or comments from the public on this agreement?
Easy question. Is this in the budget?
Al, could you please identify yourself again?
I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. My question is this item covered in our budget?
Yes, and there are no county funds related to this cost. It's Medi-Cal and realignment and EPSDT, early periodic I can't do it. Screening disability treatment. Never mind. EPSDT, we call it. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita.
If there's no any further public comments, I'll bring it back to the board for some action.
I'll make the motion to approve the minute order.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. Jeannie, did you want to take a break? Are you ready?
No, we're good. Linda's going to...
Pardon?
Auditor control.
The auditor.
Right, but I didn't know if you wanted to take a break before we start. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to move to item 15, possible action approving the 10-11 budget for, oh my God. Linda, do you have any news for us?
No. As you notice, we did change the name of the budget from final budget to adopted budget. It sounds funny to agendize an adoption to adopt the adopted, but that's what it is. Yeah. And we are in compliance. And again, we usually comment on contingencies. It is $725,000 plus at 1.24% of general fund expenditures. So.
Our goal being three times that.
4, yeah.
So we're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Linda, do you remember what our contingencies were last year? 400-something thousand?
Was it 454 or 500,000?
50. Yeah. So we're doing better this year.
No, that's misleading. Yes. Because we were supposed to put $500,000 away, and we didn't. We ended up using it as contingency.
And also, last year, we had some greater information from our state as to what our fate would be, but there's no question that we will have the second blow or the other shoe drop after the state budget, and at least some of that's going to affect this figure, possibly the bulk of it.
Right. I know in budget hearings, your comment was made, not necessarily by you, but several times I did hear about the $500,000 that we didn't put away. But then everyone realizes that cash carry was up almost $500,000. So it wasn't spent, and we still have it, if you want to look at it that way.
We have 4 resolutions before us on this item. I'd like to take them all the same unless any board member would like to separate it out. But before we do that, I'd like, if there's any public comment on this adopted budget.
At the last hearing, the taxpayer suggested that the budget be based on the worst case seen from the state, but not knowing what that would be. The question I have now would be, what percent of this budget is in question from the state? In other words, could it be affected 10% by what the state does or doesn't do, 20%, 50%?
I don't think we know that yet, Mr. Segali. We won't know it until the state adopts their final budget, because they could adopt different components, could affect different parts of the budget.
Actually, we would love to be able to answer that question, and one of the problems with the communications from the state of California and its budget process is that we're getting no information even as to what programs and what budget items are in play. So actually, your figures could be anywhere from a few percent to a huge portion of our budget, and we just wait and see what happens. But the transparency that we often talk about in processes is completely absent in this one.
Would it be proper to read off that on-time budget amendment we talked about, the fiscal responsibility amendment? Because it certainly ties into this issue, and perhaps there may be some light at the end of the tunnel if this seems to be responsible and a reasonable way to approach it. If the state of California fails to enact a budget by the end of the fiscal year, the following shall then immediately become the new budget as if adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor. Number 1, the budget for the ending fiscal year shall automatically become the budget for the new fiscal year. This new budget shall include a 5% contingency included with the previous year's total. If the resulting budget shows a surplus, the surplus shall be used first to reduce debt, and any surplus after that shall be dispersed to the counties in direct proportion to population as determined in the latest United States Census. If the resulting budget shows a deficient, all expenditure items shall be proportionally reduced to balance the budget. This amendment supersedes any previous constitutional mandating of expenses for the fiscal year that this amendment is in effect. Doesn't that make sense?
Are you submitting that to the legislature?
Yeah, in other words, we asked the legislature, this is reasonable, it's not partisan in any way, and it would stop this from happening again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Linda, did you have anything else you want? I mean, this is your last. No. We might have a final next time.
A final.
I just wanted to comment on Al's, and I think I mentioned this before, and we do this for special districts when, we send out a notice, just do your budget once and mark the box, and we'll make last year's final budget the current year proposed.